Welcome back to another Champion Deep Dive, and today we're talking about Apocalypse. He's a mutant hunting, damage dealing, indefinite debuff inflictor with molecular control for adaptive immunities and the power to enhance any mutant on your roster. I have a feeling he's gonna grow on you. So, good luck trying to cancel this Apocalypse. Now, Apocalypse has genetic enhancement. It's a persistent charge that begins with 1 charge of genetic code at the start of each quest. This becomes 2 if defending, and 3 if defending on a final boss node. And genetic code maxes out at 4 charges. This is important because at the start of the fight, Apocalypse gains 1 indefinite passive prowess for each genetic code, each increasing special attack damage by 40%. Now, knocking out a non-robot opponent grants 1 genetic code, making any standard fight a single game. However, gain 2 genetic code at the start of the fight when fighting a mutant, which gives you 3 right away if you're an attacker and max ramp if you knock them out. But, as a defender, a mutant will max ramp Apocalypse at the beginning of the fight, so keep that in mind. Now, at 3 or more charges, Apocalypse becomes stun immune while striking, dissolving parry as a usable tool against him. And at 4 genetic code or max ramp, striking the opponent's block with a light attack inflicts a stun debuff for 0.8 seconds, thus breaking their block and providing you with an entry. This ability has a 12-second cooldown and has no effect against well-timed blocks, so you can bypass this stun if your timing is on point. Now, Apocalypse has total molecular control that develops immunity to bleed, incinerate, and disorient effects over 8 seconds while suffering from them. Once developed, these immunities persist for the entire quest, and each time the opponent evades, gain a 10% chance to bypass evade. This is not affected by ability accuracy reduction, and the chance to bypass evade persists through the quest. Also, opponents suffer 100% purify ability accuracy reduction, so champs like Mole Man or Kingpin will have a tough time trying to shrug those debuffs. Using a heavy attack inflicts bleed, dealing direct damage over 7 seconds. Also, they refresh personal weakness, poison, concussion, and degeneration effects on the opponent. And you get those debuffs from your special attacks. Let's check them out. Now, first things first, both Special 1 and Special 2 inflict a debuff determined by the last light or medium attack thrown. This doesn't have to be the last hit of a combo, it's just the last one you used. Now, if you're fighting a mutant, or Apocalypse has 4 genetic code, he triggers both. During all special attacks, each hit deals a burst of physical burst damage for each personal weakness, poison, concussion, or degeneration on the opponent. So, the more of these you can stack, the more damage you deal. Now, the Special 1, if launched after a light attack, inflicts a non-stacking weakness, reducing attack rating by 25% for 25 seconds. After a medium, you inflict a non-stacking poison, dealing direct damage and reducing health recovery by 30% over 25 seconds. The Special Attack 2, if launched after a light attack, inflicts a non-stacking concussion, reducing ability accuracy by 35% for 25 seconds. After a medium, will inflict a non-stacking degeneration, dealing direct damage over 25 seconds. For both the Special 1 and the Special 2, if the opponent is suffering from a damage over time effect like bleed from your heavy attack for example, then special attack debuffs trigger on activation instead and last 30% longer. Also, an easy way to think about how to apply your debuffs is finishing with a light attack targets utility and medium attacks target damage. Told you he'd grow on you. All personal weakness, poison, concussion, and degeneration effects on the opponent are re-triggered at 100% potency and paused indefinitely. I love the smell of indefinite debuffs in the morning. Now, keep in mind, this potency increase does not stack multiple times. Now, if you weren't able to stack these debuffs before you got to the Special 3, you inflict up to 2 of them at random. These will not gain additional potency and will not be paused. However, they can be refreshed with heavy attacks and locked in with a second Special 3. Now, let's see what he can do when he's awakened. When Apocalypse doesn't participate in a fight, he enters his rejuvenation chamber to slumber. At the start of the next fight, he regenerates a portion of health for each fight his teammates won while he slumbered, stacking up to 2 times. Now, let's put this all together. So an ideal rotation for Apocalypse on short fights, you're going to want to rush to your special 2, but before you launch it, parry to medium to lock in the degeneration, and then heavy attack cancel into your special attack. This way, you have an active damage over time effect with a damaging debuff on your medium attack, straight into the special 2 that places an extended degeneration on activation to take advantage of the burst damage. From there, continue your heavy attacks to refresh the debuffs that are active. If your opponent is still holding on, build up to your special 1, and because you have a damage over time debuff, you're going to apply that poison right away, while taking advantage of that extra burst damage. On longer fights, however, especially early on in the quest, you'll want to get all 4 of your debuffs in, using the strategy of either light or medium to heavy depending on which debuff you wish to apply first, and keeping them alive with heavy attacks until you get to your special 3. This locks all 4 debuffs in and gives you max guaranteed burst damage on all your specials. And because your potency's been increased, the damage coming from your poison and your degeneration is going to tick off a nice amount. Ultimately though, once you're at max ramp, your ability to gain both debuffs with one special becomes an invaluable resource, especially when going up against a boss node. But that's not all you can do with a ramped up Apocalypse. Let's check it out. Now, if Apocalypse has 4 genetic code, he can spend them in the pre-fight screen to place a cross-fight on the fight. The next mutant who enters the fight, excluding Apocalypse himself, becomes a Horseman of Apocalypse for the rest of the quest. That's right, it's as epic as it sounds. You see, Horsemen gain the following abilities: 100% bleed resistance, so you get the debuff, but not the damage, taking advantage of Masteries like willpower to use it as a healing engine. An indefinite prowess, increasing special attack damage by 50%. A 30% gain to offensive ability accuracy, so a chance to inflict a bleed increases, for example. They can go unblockable for 2 seconds when the opponent purifies a debuff, and once per fight, go unstoppable for 3 seconds when struck, giving you an easy way out if you slip up in battle. Now, let's see some best case uses for Apocalypse. Now, once you've built up your immunities and genetic code, it's hard to find a place where Apocalypse doesn't shine, but here are just a few places to get the most out of him. On defense, place him on a final boss node. 3 genetic code right out of the box. Going up against shrug champions like Korg or Moleman, for example, will find themselves unable to purify debuffs at the mercy of Apocalypse. I mean, just being able to parry Korg alone is a plus in itself. And speaking of Shrug, Masochism doesn't stand a chance against Apocalypse. Bane and Brute Force nodes got you down? Use those block breaks for those clutch openings. Now, are you theory crafting where best you can use him? Sound off in the comments below. Now let's see some synergies. The first one, which happens to be the first one, Apocalypse gains 15% attack for each mutant on the team excluding himself. That's a 60% attack potential. Next up, your fate is mine. Bringing Mr. Sinister, Kang, or Cable on the team will find Apocalypse starting the first fight in a quest with maximum genetic code. Not only will he dominate that fight, but he can easily make a Horseman with just 1 fight. For Kang, every 4 seconds gain an indefinite fury buff granting 20% attack rating, and it stacks up to 20. Mr. Sinister's degeneration debuffs gain 50% potency. And Cable's Incinerate debuffs gain 150% potency. Additionally, heavy attacks now inflict degeneration on each hit, and their stack limit is removed. Impending Storm is next, and it's a singular synergy in where each hit of Storm's heavy attack into a shocked opponent has a 60% chance to inflict an additional shock debuff, dealing 90% of modified attack over 8 seconds. But if she's a Horseman, shock effects last 50% longer, and heavy attacks refresh all shock debuffs. This is in addition to the benefits already associated with being a Horseman. Guardian of the Pyramid with Storm Pyramid X, after charging her dormant prowess, Storm has a 70% chance to trigger a passive prowess for each prowess buff that's already active, each increasing special damage by 20% for 6 seconds. As a Horseman, she gains 30% critical rating and 20% prowess potency. Bringer of Death 1 gives Psylocke a 30% chance to grant a psi charge on basic attacks. As a Horseman, she gains 50% critical damage rating and 30% attack rating when striking an opponent at 0 power. Bringer of Death 2 with Gambit grants him a 70% chance to gain an additional kinetic charge each time one is gained with a cooldown of 0.8 seconds, helping you get to your max charge that much faster. As a Horseman, each kinetic charge grants a 10% perfect block chance, up to a max of 100%. That's definitely gonna come in handy, especially on parries. Bringer of Death 3 with Wolverine has a chance for personal bleeds to be critical bleeds based on critical rating, dealing damage based on his critical damage rating. As a Horseman, gain 30% critical rating and 40% critical damage rating. Translation: more bleeds, more damage. Now up next, let's check out those masteries. Using the Double Edge Mastery will help grant Apocalypse bleed immunity on his first fight while benefiting from the damage increase. Just be aware that this requires recoil, and Apocalypse is a heavy special attack usage champion. But if you happen to take a lot of damage, just make sure he stacks on 2 slumbers. Maxing out Despair will help keep healing efforts low when all your personal debuffs are active and indefinite on the opponent. What mastery build do you think will work best with Apocalypse? Sound off below. Oh yeah, and you weren't seeing things. He was actually getting bigger. Apocalypse's size is based on his genetic code, so if you max out his charges, you max out his size. Thank you for watching this Champion Deep Dive for Apocalypse. Are you ready? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, and I hope that you did, go ahead and click subscribe, click like, leave a comment, share it with your friends, share it with your mama. All that stuff is absolutely fantastic. And remember, stay dorky, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Oh, Potamus.